All right, welcome to another deep dive. You know how this works. We take what you send us and try to figure out what it all means. Today we're going all in on weddings. You've sent us tons of stuff, and it all points to this idea of the evolving role of the marriage celebrant.
And you found a pretty interesting source to dive into, right?
Yeah, totally. We got this interview with Gary Reilly, who runs You May Kiss Weddings over in Australia. He's been in the wedding world for ages, over 15 years actually. And what's really fascinating is he came to this from a background in events and stand-up comedy. So what we're going to try to figure out is, what actually makes a wedding ceremony stick with you? What makes it special? And how does the celebrant make that happen?
That's a really good point. I mean, if you think about it, the celebrant sets the tone for the whole thing, right?
Absolutely. So first things first, how did this guy Gary even get into this line of work?
It's not exactly the most obvious career path, right? The interview describes it as this organic transition. I mean, he was already super involved in event planning and doing comedy. Apparently, friends would always ask him to emcee their weddings. And somewhere along the line, he realized he had a real knack for this.
So it was almost like he fell into it because people recognized something in him, something that made them think, hey, this guy would be perfect for our wedding.
Exactly. And it's interesting, right? It shows you how the skills you develop in one area can totally translate into something completely different.
That's so true. Like, take the MSC thing, you're already on stage, you're engaging with a crowd, keeping the energy up.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not such a giant leap to then take on the ceremony itself. So what was it specifically that made Gary think, all right, I can do this whole celebrant thing?
From what I gather from the interview, he realized he had a real gift for connecting with people, for making them feel comfortable and making their big day super enjoyable. It wasn't just about keeping things organized and on schedule. It was about creating a real emotional connection. That's
so important. Weddings are emotional. They're about love and commitment and families coming together. You don't want some stiff robot up there officiating. So Gary realized he could bring that warmth and that personal touch.
Exactly, and that's something we can all learn from, I think. Sometimes the most fulfilling paths come from realizing how our different skills and passions can actually work together. Like, who would have thought event planning and comedy could lead to being a wedding celebrant?
Seriously, it's all about finding that sweet spot where your talents meet something you genuinely care about. Now, Gary talks a lot about balancing tone in his ceremonies, keeping things relaxed and fun, but also acknowledging the serious, deeply emotional side of it all. How does he manage that?
Well, he's got this core belief that every couple has a unique story, and his job, as he sees it, is to tell that story authentically.
So he's not just working from some generic script he uses for everyone.
No way. He's all about getting to know the couple, understanding their dynamic, what makes their relationship special, like what are their inside jokes, what moments have shaped their journey together, and then he uses that to create a ceremony that really reflects who they are.
That makes so much sense. It's like, yeah, there are the legal bits you have to cover, but the heart of the ceremony should be about the couple and their love story.
Absolutely, and he's really strategic about it. He'll weave in humor to keep the mood light and create a relaxed atmosphere, but then he'll also hit those heartfelt notes to really emphasize the emotional weight of what's happening.
It's a real balancing act, isn't it? You don't want to undercut the emotion with too much joking, but you also don't want it to feel stuffy and overly serious.
Exactly. It's about finding that perfect balance. Now, on top of being a celebrant, Gary also offers services as a Master of Ceremonies and a day coordinator. What do those roles involve?
Yeah, I was curious about that too.
Well, think of it this way. The ceremony is obviously super important, but it's only one part of the whole wedding day.
Right. There's the reception, the photos, all the different things happening.
Exactly. So by being the MC, Gary can make sure the reception runs smoothly. He handles introductions, keeps the energy up during speeches, all that good stuff.
It's like having someone there to make sure everything flows and that the guests are having a good time.
Exactly. And as a day coordinator, he takes care of all the behind-the-scenes logistics, making sure vendors are where they need to be, the timeline is on track, dealing with any little problems that pop up.
That sounds like a lifesaver for the couple. I mean, can you imagine trying to deal with all that on your wedding day? Talk about stress.
Seriously. So what Gary's really doing is offering this whole package, this idea of a seamless, cohesive experience. He helps the couple create a personalized ceremony, and then he makes sure the rest of the day lives up to that same vision.
I love that. It's all about taking the pressure off the couple so they can just relax and enjoy their special day. Now, one thing that stood out to me was that Gary's based in Sydney, but he's willing to travel all over Australia for weddings. That's dedication.
It is, and it makes sense when you think about it. Australia's huge, with all these amazing locations for weddings, beaches, vineyards, you name it.
Oh yeah, I've seen photos. Absolutely stunning.
So Gary's willingness to travel basically means couples can have him as their celebrant no matter where they're getting married.
That's pretty cool. It's like he's saying, if you connect with me and you've got your heart set on a specific place, I'll be there for you.
Right. It really emphasizes how personal that choice of celebrant is. You shouldn't be limited by geography if you find someone who really gets you. So now let's talk about how Gary's comedy background plays into all of this. The interview mentions it brings a unique flair to his ceremonies.
There's this great story about a couple who were super nervous before their ceremony. And Gary, being Gary, cracks a few well-timed jokes, and just like that, the tension melts away. They put the couple at ease, and that relaxed vibe spread to the guests too.
It just goes to show the power of humor, right? It's not about being a stand-up comedian at a wedding. It's about knowing how to use humor to connect with people, break the ice, and inject some lightheartedness into what can be a pretty intense day.
It's about being human, being relatable. Weddings can be overwhelming, and a bit of humor can help everyone remember that this is a celebration, a joyous occasion.
Totally. And it brings us back to that idea of Gary's ability to read a room, understand people's emotions, and respond accordingly. Now, what about the name You May Kiss Weddings? Where did that come from?
Yeah, that's a good one. Catchy, too.
It's all about that iconic line, you may kiss the bride, or the groom, obviously. It's instantly recognizable, and it's tied to that central moment in the ceremony, the sealing of the vows.
It's that peak moment, right? The kiss is like the exclamation point on the whole thing.
Exactly. And by putting that phrase right in the name, Gary's immediately telling you what he's all about. It's memorable, it's to the point, and it captures the essence of what he does. Now, thinking about his years in the industry, how has Gary seen the role of the celebrant changing?
He's noticed a big shift towards personalized ceremonies.
I also want to give a big thank you to Gary. Gary has been our celebrant, our MC, our event coordinator, and has just been fantastic throughout this whole thing. We've had people coming up to us tonight saying, hey, how do you guys know Gary? It's like, we actually found Gary online, and but anyone's it, we swiped right. He had a thing on there about how he loved tacos, and we're just like, hang on, we've seen this one before. I honestly, for the half of you who are currently engaged, I could not recommend Gary more highly.
Couples these days are way more intentional about wanting their ceremony to be a reflection of who they are, their values, their unique story.
It's like a move away from those traditional cookie-cutter ceremonies, right?
Absolutely. People want something that feels authentic, something that speaks to their individuality. And that's where the celebrant comes in. They're not just reciting lines anymore, they're crafting a whole experience.
So the celebrant is almost like a storyteller, working with the couple to create a narrative that's truly theirs.
Exactly. Gary calls them bespoke ceremonies, and it's a much more collaborative and creative process. It's about listening to the couple, understanding their vision, and then translating that into a ceremony that feels unique and meaningful. Now, for anyone out there planning their own wedding, what advice does Gary have when it comes to choosing a celebrant?
His number one tip: find someone you connect with on a personal level. This is someone who's going to be a big part of your big day, so you need to feel comfortable with them, trust them, and be confident they understand what you're going for.
That makes total sense. You're sharing a really intimate moment with them, so that connection is super important.
Totally. And he also stresses the importance of communication. The celebrant needs to be able to articulate your story in a way that feels authentic to you. They're essentially the narrator of your relationship on that day.
It's like they're telling your love story to the world. And finally, Gary talks about the importance of experience. You want a celebrant who's done this before, who can handle any curveballs that might come up and keep things running smoothly.
Absolutely. That experience brings a level of confidence and professionalism that can really put the couple at ease. They can trust that the celebrant has got this, and they can just focus on enjoying the moment. So, if anyone wants to learn more about Gary and his work, where can they find him?
His website is www.youmaykiss.com.au. You can check out his services there and get in touch with him. He's also pretty active on Instagram. His handle is @Gary Reilly You May Kiss.
Awesome. So for anyone planning a wedding in Australia, Gary Reilly sounds like someone worth checking out. He brings professionalism, warmth, a touch of humor, and a real commitment to creating personalized experiences.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of marriage celebrants, let's recap some of the key takeaways. The role of the celebrant has evolved significantly. It's no longer just about the legal stuff. It's about storytelling, emotional connection, and creating a ceremony that truly reflects the couple.
Exactly. We've seen how personalization has become so important in modern weddings, and the celebrant is now a key player in making that happen.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. We've been talking about weddings, but this trend towards personalization is happening everywhere. So what other areas of our lives could benefit from a more bespoke, individually tailored approach? Whether it's other big life events, celebrations, or even how we approach things in our careers, where else could a little more intentionality and personalization make a real difference?
That's a great question. It's definitely something to ponder.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
See ya!